Pod.
Rugby Pod.
Hello! And welcome back to the Rugby Pod for the final time this season, James Hamilton.
Yes, sir. Season 9 is done and dusted, Andrew. And thank good. No, I'm going to miss it. Look, I'm going to miss it. It's been a hell of a season. It has. And what a episode to finish on, hey? Hell of a ding-dong at the weekend. So we'll be reviewing a very wet, I find the word wet very weird, and turgid affair for the third test of what I thought was a brilliant tour all round.
Yeah, it was. We'll get into it, and we're going to look at some of the big questions around what's next, James. Who's going to be the next Lions coach? Just give it Faz now. It'll be fine.
Brassy.
It'll be fine. We're going to dive into loads of that and chat about the tour overall. It's been epic. Season 9 has been long. It's our longest season ever, but it's been unbelievable.
Yeah, well, we're going to go out in style today. So hopefully, well, it's not hopefully, it bloody well will be a hell of a show.
So settle back, enjoy, and make sure you subscribed on Spotify. How good, Jim? Overall, as a Lions tour and series, great to see it finish at the weekend. And do you know what? Australia winning, although we spoke about it last week, I was gutted we didn't go 3-0, but fully deserved. Australia are on the map. They've got a couple of big years coming up. They've got a big August coming up now with the Rugby Championship. But it was good, actually, I think, for the game itself. Yes, James, you were the oracle.
Say it. Say it.
You were right, James.
What was I right about, Andrew?
That the Lions went on the hose for 3 days. And
No. Go further back. Further back.
The Aussies, they're coming round the mountain when she comes. Yeehaw!
Yeehaw. And that was the thing, right, Andrew? Because with this tour, and it's been up, it's been down, it's been up and down for us, it's been up and down for the listeners, for the viewers of the show, and it's been amazing, and it's been chaotic, it's been brutal, there's been jeopardy, and you know, like us personally, when we chat, producer Rob, when we have these conversations off air, we normally deliver what we say off air on air anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But when we're talking about, does the Lions have a place? Are Australia any good? Is this Lions team as good as the ones that went to South Africa in 97 or 2017? Was the opposition as good? And we'll get through all of that. But just an overall summary, I'll go back to what I said last week. I had FOMO of not being there because it looks so good. Everything around it, the interactions, I mentioned the chaos and the drama and the jeopardy and the stories. As a fan, forget this, as a fan, it made me want to be there. And I felt like I missed out on what was an incredible series. And let's be honest, it must have been tough on the players and the coaches to get through the amount of work and logistics and all of these things. But I think the tour lived up to everything you probably would have hoped for. The only one thing would have been if the decision went the other way in Test 2, and that would have took us into a very different game into Test 3. Because I was chatting to my mate about it before. He's like, what do you reckon? I said, look, the Oracle tells you the Lions ain't going to be at the level that they were or they would have been if they lost that game in Test 2. Yeah. And that's what we saw, didn't we? So, yeah. And you know, right, and you probably know better than anyone, right, because of the way that you played and the psychology in the game. And me as well, because when I was playing 30, 35 games a year, you couldn't play the way that I wanted to play 35 games a year. You had to pick and choose when you went fucking all in. Mad dog, body on the line, chaos, will die for the jersey. You couldn't do that every game. And you'll know, again, in your position and the way that you played the game, that you can't do that every week. And when the Lions had won that series and had it wrapped up, yeah, you can try and build the week up after going on the smash for 2 or 3 days, and we want to do it 3-0. But it goes back to what I said last week. The desperation that Australia showed in that second test was probably actually more there because they were so pissed off with what happened in Test 2 and Test 3. And you saw that. It unfolded how we kind of thought, eh?
Yeah. And you go back to a few things we've said over the last few weeks, and you mentioned the name Will Skelton, and I said a few weeks ago that he makes everyone around him 5-10% better. And I just go back, we're reacting to the series now, and we'll get into the nuts and bolts of the game because it was basically dictated to by the rain, by the weather conditions, by the actual desire of the Wallabies not to be the first team for how many years to be 3-0 kind of thing. And then I think effectively, when you add in Will Skelton and Joe Schmidt, one thing around Joe Schmidt, he's a very intelligent coach, right? Everyone's always said that. He's really detailed. I just think he'll be sitting down now going, I've got some regrets. I made some mistakes in that first test, in the build-up to the first test, only playing Fiji, not playing Will Skelton in the first test when he could have played him, not playing Rob Valentini in the first test when he could have played him. And you saw the impact that those two had on test 2, but also test 3, Will Skelton and what he was doing. Nick White as well. We mentioned him earlier in the tour
100%.
about how good he was with his kickoffs and everything he brings to the game. And I think Joe Schmidt was kind of reactive to that first test, whereas, ultimately, had he have gone and prepared themselves better, they should have been better prepared, the Aussies. I know Joe Schmidt hasn't been the coach there for like 4 years building up to this, but he's been there long enough to say, actually, I need 2 games at least. I need all my best players from around the world to go and beat the Lions. And they kind of bit their nose off a little bit to spite their face with not playing certain players at certain times because they don't play in Australia and whatever. And then there'll be a massive amount of regret, I think, from the Australian coaches and management for how they handled the players in terms of thinking that they could cope in Test 1 without their big rock stars. Look at Taniela Tupou. Okay, he had some big impacts on the game. He wasn't the best player on the field, but when you stick him in a team, you stick Will Skelton in a team. Had they been there from Test 1, I'm 100% sure we probably could have got to that last Test match on Saturday in Sydney with it all on the line. And it was a bit of I say damp squib because it was pissing down with rain. But the Lions, you could see, Australia were half a second faster to everything. Their emotions were a lot more charged. Faz obviously kept with a lot of the same team that had got them in that position. Those lads, the tanks were empty, and he perhaps should have brought some other people in. But hindsight's a wonderful thing. Faz had the luxury of the test series he's done and dusted. We're 2-0 up. And so you think of some of the players that he could have used, Van der Fleer, Henry Pollock with like energy. There's a few others that I probably missed out. P.S. Gooman, potentially, Scott Cummings, a number of other guys that could have had impacts that didn't in that third test. But end of the day, the Lions test series was won after week 2. And it does leave a bit of a sour taste with the loss. And you heard what Dan Sheehan said after the game, didn't you, around how it leaves a bit of a sour taste because they lost that last game. But it has been the time of their lives, an unbelievable tour. And I think, it lived up to a lot of expectations. I've seen some stuff on social media going, that's the worst Lions team ever because it was the worst Australian team ever. But you can only do and beat what's in front of you. And the Lions did that in the first 2 tests to justify the series win. And their performance was a jaded performance on Saturday against a pumped-up Australia team who have got the World Cup in 2 years, who were basically not trying to save Australian rugby, but saving face. Had they been the first team to lose 3-0 for 100-odd years or whatever it was, then everyone would be writing Australia off for the foreseeable future in the next couple of years. But with the likes of Skelton and Nick White, who I know is retiring now, if you're Joe Schmidt, you're like, Nick, mate, come on, you got another couple of years, pal, because he was that good. But just the energy and the desire and the want from the Australians was more than the British and Irish Lions on the day, and that leads to the victory.
Do you not think as well that the Wallabies' game plan just suited the conditions better than the Lions? And Schmidt said as well, didn't he, that they'd prepped for those conditions, that they had heard that lightning was potentially coming, so they'd kind of scenario planned for these, whereas the Lions were still kind of playing that, that attacking game when it was, they just couldn't get hold of the ball.
Well, this is what I mean with the tactics, and I heard Biggs's comments, and again, I watched the Australian version as well, and they were talking about how you play in these conditions. I actually thought Australia played like it was a dry ball. I thought their skill set was unbelievable with their tight passing, and also with the bodies that they had, like the likes of Will Skelton specifically, or just Will Skelton. It allowed them to have gain line and then be able to make plays off the back of that. And I know there's a lot of talk about the conditions and that 40-minute break, and Finn sat there on his phone and The fact that the Lions didn't look like they were locked in. Finn's on his phone. He's betting on the Aussies at half-time every game.
He's checking
anyway.
his notes. He's checking his notes that he's written down before the game for some... people that are going at Finn for getting his phone out, it's just ridiculous. Like, it's happened twice in the last few weeks, hasn't it? Where obviously England came off in, was it Washington for Lightning as well? It doesn't happen every week, so no one knows how to react. No one knows what to do. So you want players to relax for a minute. Finn's getting his phone out, and he could be doing whatever he wants. He could be messaging the missus in the stands. He could be checking on his kids. He could be looking at a horse race. He could be doing anything. He could be looking at his notes.
He could be looking at the weather. It could be like, when is this over?
Yeah.
Or he could be emailing or Instagramming the nightclub saying, look, we're going to be a little bit late to the party tonight.
Exactly. Well, undoubtedly, the break helped the Aussies because Will Skelton got to have a bit of a rest, and it suited the way they were. And just going back to your point, Jim, around how both teams played, I think it came down to playing off 9 more and how Nick White controlled stuff. The British and Irish Lions played a bit off Finn at 10 and forced a few things. Like the try for Jorgensen was forced off going wide. That wasn't necessarily Finn's fault. Finn hits Owen Farrell. Faz takes the balls to the line and they've just overshot him on the outside. And yeah, you probably tactically, in those games, you're better off without the ball a lot of the time. And ultimately, I am talking now to one of the world's greatest ever line-out experts in James Hamilton. And the sequence of events for the Lions, we talked how good Dan Sheehan's lineouts were. I think he lost 1 in 40 before the last test. Going into that test match, you lose Marrow for a HIA. James Ryan goes off. Your lineout in those weather conditions just went to pot, didn't it? And that was through Frost and the pressure that he was putting on, but also the fact that they had 2 injuries to their second rows. Will Skelton had seen both those boys off inadvertently. And in games when it's absolutely hosing down, the only things that matters are gain line, line out, scrum, and kick chase. And the Wallabies were better in all those facets of the game, and hence get the victory.
Matt, I agree. And they got the rub of the green at the scrum as well. I thought the Aussies were hard done by. I thought Amesh Kelly again. I don't want to go hard at the referees, but
the refereeing was poor, right? The balance of the refereeing was poor across the 3 test matches. Let's be honest about it.
Which is a real shame. And it's negative to say, and it's a real shame. And I really was hoping I didn't feel the need to say that. But the Aussies were really dominant at line-out. And look, the line-out coach for Australia is Jeff Parlin. He's going to Leicester, so he needs to get a big shout-out. Played in that Lions series in 2013, and now he's coaching in Australia. So there's a story in that as well. And like you said, it was just a knock-on effect of a few things for the Lions, losing Marrow to a HIA, and then poor James Ryan as well. And we should probably just mention how the game unfolded with some of the injuries and the stopping and the starting and all of these things. But the blood that we saw as well, and the HIAs, which we haven't seen, probably shows you the story of the game and just how physical it was, and the fact that things were a lot tighter and the Australians were a lot more physical. And Dan Sheehan's hit on Tom Liner. We'll talk about that. You might have that in your segment at the end, Goodey, as well. But the game was a lot tighter. It was a lot more physical. It was a lot more attritional. And we'll go back and forth on the lines in Australia. The thing that impressed me most about Australia was saw it 12 months ago in the championship. And as they look forward now to the game against South Africa, right? And Big said it right on Sky Sports. We'll know how good Australia are at the end of the championship, right? And your comments on Joe Schmidt were really interesting, because I listened to Joe Schmidt's press conference as well, and he kept talking about what's next. He doesn't like to look back. Mate, you need to look back. You need to think about, right, well, how do you set up an Australia team going into the championship? Because they're prepped now, they're ready to go. But a World Cup in 2 years' time, I know it's going to be Les Kiss that takes over, but mate, they were undercooked in that first test. The second one, they could have won that. They were winning the whole game. And in that third test, they were completely dominant. They completely dominated the Lions at the line out, at the gain line, at the breakdown, at scrum time, and they didn't get the rub of the green from the referee around that parts of it. So, yeah, it was. I actually really enjoyed the physical contest of the game, and you saw that again. Just going back to the lineouts, by losing Marrow, who has been brilliant on this tour, and losing James Ryan the way in which they did, you are prepped for that, but when you've got the quality of Frost and Williams coming off the bench and the athletes that they've got and the conditions where you can't really throw long. We saw the Australians trying to throw long and it was like banana peels going left, right and centre is, and that's what you saw. And you need to give a big shout out to Jeff Parlin, who manages that area of the game, but also the fact that Australia have managed to shift away from this playing a wide kind of expansive game, which they're notorious for, been actually able to tighten up the game around physicality, but also around set piece dominance as well.
Yeah. I mean, looking back at it, I think the only disappointment from the tour really is Joe Schmidt and how he prepared the Aussies for the first test, because it was underwhelming that first test, right? But that's nothing to do with the Lions. That's the Lions beating what's in front of them. And so for Joe Schmidt to go, I'm looking forward, you're dead right, Jim. He needs to look back and go, I messed up there. And, he's going to finish, I think he's finishing after the Autumn Nation Series, isn't he? And Les Kiss will take over from the end of this calendar year, moving forward for the Australians. But that's the biggest letdown, was that first test, which meant that it didn't feel like a real quality test series until the second test. And that's all Australia. So that's all the preparation, everything that goes with it. And then going back to what you talked about then around the refereeing, like Andrew Porter, and we love Porter. He's come on the show. He's a good man. He never scrummages straight, does he? You see the angle. Some of those pictures, he's been hard done by. Well, he hasn't been hard done by. People have just told the truth about the angle that he scrummaged at. And the refereeing wasn't, I don't think, good enough across the whole series. You look at Marius Jonker at the weekend, TMO. He's missed Dan Sheehan's clear out to the head of Tom Liner, who's gone off for a HIA and failed it. So there's actual evidence there that you go, geez, something must have happened. And now Dan Sheehan's got a 4-match ban. But then he's coming in for like Nick White competing for a ball when Faz puts it behind the back to Finn Russell. And you're like, what is going on?
Well, also as well, Jack Morgan's try. I didn't think that was a try. It at least needed to be looked at. And I know that the Welsh listeners are going to hate this. It's got nothing to do with Jack Morgan. It could have been Marrow. It could have been Owen. It could have been Mai Eben. And I would have said the same thing on that. And I just think there was so much. And I know, like, I can see Rob kind of creasing a little bit here because
because you've named you've named 2 Saracens and a South African. Jim, climb out, boy, climb out of everyone's arse at Saracens and South Africa.
But it's more because there was so many positives around it. But like, one thing that I've said before about how you view the game with the aerial. Like, who loves drone footage? Everyone loves the drone footage, don't they? But that aerial view of scrummaging, gives you almost everything you need to know. And when I saw the aerial view, I love that because you can see the angles, you can see the positions. It's a great perspective to see. But so many bad calls at scrums, and the ones at the weekend against Australia didn't affect the outcome of the game. But there's been ones in the series where it has. And it's like the knock-on effect that you then have off the back of a scrum penalty, and there's a few things that have been highlighted over this tour where we as a game and the referees and everything else, and I think that the presentation of the game with Sky Sports, with Biggs and Rog, that's been elevated. But, the quality of players now and the quality of coaching and manipulating, and we saw that in the South Africa-Italy game where Rassi's trying these innovation which looks a bit like circus style, doesn't it? We saw Dan Sheehan diving over a ruck to score a try, and people were not understanding whether or not we could do that or not. So, you know what I mean? Maybe this is it. Maybe this is the stuff that we enjoy. But I think on a whole, I thought the series was as good as we could have hoped for, really. And there's been so much to talk about. And do you know what I mean? I think one thing that will be spoken about now naturally is like who will coach the Lions next. And I think with Andy Farrell, for the first time that I've seen, maybe as England coach as well, but he wasn't head coach at the time during 2015 where him and Graham Rowntree were involved with the World Cup. But for the first time, he's been the head coach, he's been the front man. I know there was a little bit of heat after the quarterfinal from the World Cup, but the way in which he set up his team, bringing in Owen Farrell mid-tour, and his selections have come under scrutiny, right? But when it's all said and done, he's made the right call because they won the series effectively. But I do agree with you what he said. I would have brought in fresher legs for the third test. Just like I couldn't believe Sione Tuipulotu weren't playing, for example.
Was he fit? Because I haven't got to the bottom of whether he was fit or not. I think he was.
There you go.
We never know the truth, do we?
There you go. So this is one of the other things as well that we can maybe talk about is the lack of access and David Nucifora putting a towel over the camera.
Do not put a towel over the camera. I used to walk into the changing room and do it every time because I didn't want my belly hanging out on live TV.
Okay, but that's what I mean. But you never knew. So yes, we were kind of getting little things like around Gary Ringrose and his honesty or whatever. But was Matt Hansen fit for the third test? Was Sione Tuipulotu? It almost felt like, fuck it, just let's get it done. You know, was James Lowe injured or was he dropped? Because then there was talk of Tommy Freeman, he went off injured in the game, so he probably wasn't 100% fit anyway, that Hugh Jones was going to go to the wing, and just having a little bit of that transparency. And I know that a few people are hating on that because it's got nothing to do with you. It's, you know, being in the changing rooms and having the cameras, it's got nothing to do with you guys. But it just felt like there was a bit of a disconnect. Oh, fucking hell, this is a negative episode. It won't be. We'll finish on a high. But it felt like there was a bit of a disconnect.
Well, I think we need to talk about it really because, you know, while from our perspective, we've looked at all the social media stuff and the channels are looking great and the content they're putting out there, just purely from a Lions perspective, has been great. There's been a fair few complaints from journos, from Australians, from Stan Sport, from, you know, people that are on the ground there, that they have had very limited access to these players and to get inside. And like you said then, we didn't know whether Sione Tuipulotu was injured. We didn't know whether Matt Hansen was fit or all those things. And it boils down to, it's very similar to the Irish setup with the Island camp. And, you know, I know there's some press people there and David Nucifora putting the towel over the camera and all things like that. But it's such a closed shop. And you made the point yourself about growing the game. You need more access. And that's one thing that perhaps when they go back, they'll, you know, this has nothing to do with the players or the coaches. This is from a management perspective. And I had a moan last week, didn't I, about the CEO who effectively sat with him around the contract where they stopped Pete Samu from playing against them because of a contractual term that said he hadn't played Super Rugby. Shit like that, we don't need it in rugby. Like, we need to grow the game, as you said, Jim, and as you said on X and things like that. Access is the key, right? And the players want to give access. The players now want to be more accessible because they want to grow their own brand and they see the value in doing that. Yet it's people in press positions that block everything and control the narrative and control what you can and can't see, learn, hear, etc., etc. And I think that's where they've perhaps missed the boat a little bit on this Lions tour, with complete transparency and understanding and knowledge and everything that goes with that. And ultimately, that's one thing that they can work better at. But it's a learning process, isn't it? Because you could argue on one hand, the content that they've put out on their own channels has been the best it's ever been on our Lions tour during the tour. But then other stuff has been kind of kept behind closed doors and the access has been poor for other media channels as well. So it is a hard balance. Ultimately, they've gone there to do it. And Faz might stand there and go, none of that matters. That doesn't involve me. I won the series 2-1. But for the people that are in suits and in decision-making around access and press and how it looks and the feel and the CEO and the brand and all that stuff, they're serious conversations that need to be had and understand what the people want.
Let me just say this as well. The disconnection was so obvious to me in the understanding around the marketing of the game and actually what's going on and the people making the decisions, and whoever that absolute idiot who's pressed Sweet Caroline as James Ryan is knocked out on the floor flatlined. It is just absolutely beyond me. It makes me so angry and so sad that in that moment where you've got a player who is on the floor and you don't know what fucking condition he's in, whatever condition he was in a bad way, right? And he is getting stretchered off, and someone in that stadium, a marketeer, a someone of power, a someone of influence who is bringing that music and that energy into the stadium to the 80,000 people plus and everyone at home, thinks it is play on to press play when you've got a player injured on the floor.
What do you reckon for next Lions coach then, lads? Playing devil's advocate, I think we should go a non-Six Nations coach.
Oh, why are you throwing that in there, Rob?
Because Rob's doing it for the social clip.
Oh, for the clicks.
Because it'd be too easy. Go on then, Rob. Who would you go for?
Well, when we had Gats, there was all the complaints about it being predominantly Welsh, wasn't there? And him dropping Brian O'Driscoll for Foxy and what have you. Andy Farrell comes in, picks predominantly Irish coaches, predominantly Irish team. If you have someone who's not affiliated to a Six Nations squad, you're getting pure objectivity, aren't you? Like, imagine if we had a Razzie in there, and Razzie is purely picking, not based on, I've known you for 5-6 years and we're really close with it. He's picking purely on who's the best player.
He ain't picking any Irish players. He ain't doing it. You know what? There's a part of me, Rob, for this moment, I'm going to go with you for now, that would love to see that. You have a complete neutral in, right? You have a completely different perspective. It's in New Zealand. Get Rassie to do it. I wonder whether or not he'd do it. Whether it would be an absolute honour, bro.
Yeah, who is it? I think Razzie's about to sign his new contract as well, isn't he? I saw some news come out today from the Springboks. But Razzie's the only person that you could probably say is that person to have the objectivity and have the I couldn't care less what anyone else thinks. I'm an outsider, but this is what I'm going with.
Mate, come on the journey, mate.
Yeah, no, mate. No, absolutely not. Mate. Eddie Jones. Well, then he's got an allegiance to English players, right? And what do they normally announce it 2 years before? Like, how much rugby is there to go under the bridge? And I'll tell you, looking at Andy Farrell, if you were going to name a coach now in 4 years' time, of course, you're giving it to Andy Farrell again, right? But the reality with Andy Farrell and Ireland, and I don't say this lightly, they've done amazingly well to get to where they've got to. Yes, people are going to go, yeah, but they can't get past a quarter final. You get to the 27 World Cup, and this Ireland team are right at the end of their cycle, right? You look at some of those players, Bundy Aki, Tyg Furlong, there's a few others in there as well, that are coming towards the end of the cycle. So that will be their Everest of trying to win the World Cup in 27. Andy Farrell's got a massive job in Ireland to regenerate all these players that have played for him for so long, and Joe Schmidt, and they've been, in between World Cups, the best team in the world. They've won Six Nations, and Faz won't even think about doing the Lions job in 4 years' time, because his focus will purely be on, I need to get every ounce out of every player for the next 2 years to try and win a World Cup, because that's their only hope. With this aging squad, like a James Knight, people are calling players out left, right, and centre. But you look at France and you look at England; they've got loads of young players coming through, and the kind of future generations are looking good. Whereas in Ireland, it's a smaller player pool. The time is now for them. So Faz has got a massive job over the next 2 years with Ireland to get them ready for a World Cup, where, similar to the Springboks, they've got some world-class players that are slightly aging. So when you look at it, if you were naming a Lions coach now for 4 years' time, you're saying give it Faz again, because all the noise is out of the camp. And yes, from the outside, it's like he picked so many Irish players. He picked so many Irish players because they've been the best bloody players and the best bloody team, right? I don't think many people could look at that. Darcy Graham's probably one of the few that could say he's really unlucky not to go on the tour originally. He ends up going on the tour and gets injured, whatever. But in reality, Faz is probably one of the most straight down the line guys that you can meet as a coach. And when you hear the noises from the lads, and it's easy to say it when you're on tour, it sounds like they genuinely mean they've had the time of their lives, they've connected. You couldn't say that from all the other tours, could you? And I know the South Africa tour was bloody difficult because it was COVID. The New Zealand tour 4 years before that in 2017, you perhaps didn't get that feeling. But under Andy Farrell, who's a very different personality to someone like Warren Gatland, to an Eddie Jones, to a Clive Woodward, to those people prior to it, he has gelled a squad together where it seems and sounds like they've had an unbelievable time connecting with each other and been, created a brotherhood for life, right? So, yes, you've got the outside influence of someone like a Razzie. I don't know how many candidates there are outside of Razzie Erasmus that aren't English, Scottish, Irish or Welsh. But the reality is Faz, as it stands, would be, dependent on what happens over the next few years, maybe he goes to the 27 World Cup as Ireland head coach, and then that's him done with them, and he just has the Lions job then. And then it's he's a little bit distanced from that Ireland job. But, mate, a week in sport, look at the difference between Test 1 and Test 2. A week in sport, things change massively. So, if you're going from the outside, you're saying Razzie. If you're going from where we are now, Andy Farrell's your man for the next Lions tour to New Zealand.
I'll throw one more out there.
Go on, James.
Rog.
Yeah, you could see that, but it depends on Roger's plans. And
no! Don't go to we could dig into each and every one. I'm just throwing it out there. We're putting 3 on the table. So you've got Andy Farrell, we've got Rassie Erasmus, and we've got Ron Nogara.
There you go, James.
Let the fans decide.
So looking at the tour as a whole, then, who was the surprise package in terms of who was selected that you thought might have been a squad player, could have been a midweek player, but then came out looking good?
We need to give a shout out to Ty Furlong because of his injury profile in the lead up to the tour. Then to go on and play 9 consecutive tests was quite remarkable.
Yeah, really.
So he needs a shout out. Was he a surprise? I wouldn't say that he was a surprise. No, but it was. It was more kind of an amazing surprise. A question mark leading up to the tour, I suppose. That's a great way of putting it. But there weren't many. I suppose for our Welsh listeners as well, I'm really happy that Jack Morgan got his time in the sun because I, for one, was saying, he's in a losing Welsh team. And look, for context for the listeners on here, I'm only going based on what Warren Gatland told me when we had a good Scotland team in 2013 and he basically refused to take...
We had a good team in 2013.
Any of the Scots. Mate, we had a good team in 2020.
Where did you finish in the Six Nations? 4th?
I don't know. Yeah, 4th, we're happy with that. But my point is, Warren Gatland's argument for not picking as many Scottish players was that consistently they don't win and they have a losing mentality. That was to quote Warren Gatland, the coach. So I'm quoting him basically when I'm looking forward to this tour with the Welsh players and someone like Jack Morgan, who I am a big fan of, follow him on social media from early days, means I'm a fan, right? So I'm a fan of Jack Morgan. And with all the discussions in the lead up and then Tom Curry getting picked for Test 1 and the way in which he's handled business, he might have been fuming behind the scenes, but it seems like he's very measured in how he goes about his business. And when he's been called upon, which he was in Test 2 and in this 3rd test, there's been big moments that he's been involved in. Test 2, the clear out, which went his way, rightly so, as well. The try in Test 3, I know that they didn't win the game, but he's answered any question marks that I might have had and other people might have had. And, for Wales, you've got an absolute star. You've got a gem. You've got a long-term captain. And look, there's talk of him leaving Wales as well. And we'll maybe talk about that in other news. But for me, Jack Morgan deserved his time in the sun. And I'm really glad as a neutral looking at that, but as a British and Irish Lions fan, that he got the opportunity to deliver.
Yeah. And just going back to 2013, Jem, you said about Scotland had a good team. Do you know where you finished in the Six Nations in 2013?
Yeah, it was mid-table.
It was mid-table. It was above mid-table. It was 3rd.
There you go.
Yeah. So Wales won it. England came 2nd. Scotland came 3rd. Played 5. How many did you win?
I think we won 2 because I got man of the match in both games.
You did, James.
And we beat Ireland.
You won 2. Italy also won 2 games. They finished 4th. So you had 4 points. It was when it was 2 points.
Okay, mate, you don't need to go into details. We finished 3rd and I got 2 man of the matches and I wasn't taken on tour.
That's enough, yeah. But no, you're right. Going back to it, I think Jack Morgan is the one that performed exceptionally well. And it wasn't a surprise to people that know him. It's a confirmation of how good he was and how torrid a time he's had with Wales. And then to park all that and just shine on tour, I think he was the one for me that... I don't think there was any surprises because they're all world-class players in different traits, right?
Here's another one. Can I give you one more?
Yeah.
And he got Player of the Series, Ty Byrne. And I'm not surprised that he got Player of the Series.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised that he was as good as he was in parts of that tour. But with how the warm-up games went and all of these, and we were talking about it, and you had him in your Test 1 team, I didn't. So, again, not a surprise.
So you're saying sorry, James?
He doesn't need me to say sorry, does he?
Yeah. I'm trying to think across other players. I mean, Hugo Keenan's finish to win that 2nd test might have surprised some people because of the story that he had on tour. But they're all, all these players are on tour. There wasn't anyone, kind of pre-tour, it was about Henry Pollock and what he would produce. And he's flown from, we spoke to him at the start of the Six Nations when he was in the England 20s, didn't we? And he was like, look, I want to win the 20s Six Nations and then hopefully get a chance. He's flourished and ended up on a Lions tour. And perhaps he could feel a little bit disappointed that he hasn't gone on. But I don't think there was many sort of surprises around the selection and around someone that could have really shone from not having such a high profile, because they're all high profile quality players, aren't they? But standout, I suppose it's standout players that it's the difference one. And you mentioned Tyburn then, Finn Russell. How weird is it? Finn Russell gets the Howden Player of the Series. That's rugby union for you. And then Tyburn gets Player of the Series.
I tell you what's rugby union, where you bring up a pissed up guy onto the pitch from Howden's Kitchens.
Well, he owns Howden's. That is Mr. Howden.
I know. But like that again. So you talk about all the good in the game. Why would you do that? Like you bringing on the sponsor from Howden's, who's absolutely slippered.
Yeah.
And he's passing judgment on, when you make a mistake, you smile. Fuck, what the fuck is going on? Do you know what I mean? Actually, when I'm speaking about it, I'm quite enjoying it. But it was, what the hell?
Yeah.
He's got this Lions jersey on there. The others are hanging out the side.
He's got his name on the back as well. Howden on the back because he's Mr. Howden.
He's taking off his tweed jacket. His loafers are dripping wet. He's dripping in cash. And he is chatting to Finn Russell on Sky Sports, steaming, telling him about like the way that he's playing and smiling on his face when he makes mistakes. It was just, you smile, you got a smile on your face even when you're making mistakes.
I know, I'm watching the interview and I'm looking at Finn's face, and he obviously, I presume Finn knows he is Mr. Howden, right? So you have that kind of level of respect because they've pumped a load of cash in, they pumped millions into the Lions. So without them, they're a big part of the tour, main sponsor, right? So you show the respect, but you could just see, you get a space invader when you're talking to people that are pished, right? And you're a player, or you do a speech at a dinner and you get people grabbing you and talking to you, whatever. I'm looking at Finn and he's like trying to smile and he's like, yeah, trying to play along with it. All I'm thinking is, how bad's his breath? Like Finn must be, he's getting closer and closer, and the guy's breath must be humming because he's been on the red wine all day or whatever. And Finn's like that, backing off a little bit and trying to do the professional thing, which I thought Finn handled it really well. But yeah, I mean, how weird was it that there was two different Player of the Series? But hey, rugby union.
What did the Oracle say at the start of the tournament, Rob? Producer Rob, what did I say? I've got my ear out.
Which bit?
About if the Lions were going to win the series, who would be MVP.
I can't remember what
you
you
didn't
said.
say Tyburn.
Yeah. You say a lot of things, Jim.
But there's the thing, I get this with Jim all the time. So he'll send me a voice note and go, how well do I know rugby? I told you that'd happen. I said it on the pod 6 weeks ago, and I'm like, I ain't got the time to go back and listen to it, James, but I'll just give it to you.
I said at the start of the tour, if the Lions were going to win this, Finn Russell would get Player of the Tournament.
Yeah.
And for me to talk about Finn and the lead up to this tour, and it might have been a clear run for him. It might have been a clear run in the background. Andy Farrell loves him as a 10. Johnny Sexton loves him as a 10. There's no issues, right?
Oh, he does now.
But they weren't the whispers, right? And they're only whispers that they weren't the whispers, right? The whispers were that Andy Farrell wants a 10 like a Finn Smith, like a Johnny Sexton.
Can I ask you a question, James? I do remember, I don't know whether you said it on air on the pod, but we've definitely had the conversation where you said, I'm hearing whispers that Finn Russell isn't even going to go on the Lions tour.
No, I don't think I said we're hearing whispers.
Or you said...
There are whispers.
There are whispers. There are whispers.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very different. I didn't hear anything.
So basically, if you say everything, something will stick, right, is what you're saying.
Of course, yeah, exactly. Scattergunning. But for me, like personally, I love Finn, right?
Yeah.
Scottish 10, an icon of our game. And he's going to go on to do amazing things. But his development, not just as a player, but as a man. And I saw this, and this is very superficial, but I saw it after we played France in the Six Nations. I think we got robbed by the ref again. And he got up as captain. I think he was captain at the time, or he was in with this Gregor Townsend leadership group, so he was half a captain. And he got up there and he addressed the room, all the posh heads, and he spoke in Scottish, and then he spoke in fluent French. And I know he played in France and he was fly half and needs to speak French or whatever, but I was there and I was in awe of him because not only had he delivered a phenomenal performance on the pitch, our standout player, he went up there and he held the room like a Richie McCaw, like a John Eales, like a Martin Johnson in his own way. And for me, that was like, fucking hell. He's our boy, right? And he is our front man. He is the face of Scottish rugby. And he would tell you, right, he wants to win something for Scotland more than anything. And I don't know, without speaking for him, would winning a Six Nations or a Grand Slam be bigger than the Lions series? I actually think it might be for Finn. Genuinely, I think it might be. But to see him win the series and be the 10 and be the main man within that team, and then to get, again, 50% of the player of the series, or the Howdens player of the series or man of the series, it was just great. It was just great for me to see, because I love everything about him. And, I just hope that he takes Scotland to the next World Cup, and this is a catalyst for him and for the Scotland players, guys like Sione and Douan, who didn't really get much of a shot as well, and Darcy, who was unfortunate, and Pierre Schoeman, who didn't play. Just from a personal point of view, it was just so cool to see Finn do his thing and get rewarded both on the pitch with what he got and how he played, but also to get these awards that are quite superficial, but, they mean a lot, because it means that we get to talk about him in this vein.
Who would you boys have picked for player of the tour then?
Between three for me, and two of them have got the awards.
Same as you.
Two of them have got the awards. I think we might disagree on the third one, James. So, like Finn, as you know, I'm a massive fan, and we wax lyrical about him on here. And wonderful player, wonderful bloke, wonderful human being. Does it that balance with a smile and fun, and very switched on as well when he needs to be, and everything that goes with that. But Tyke Byrne, I've always been a huge fan of him ever since. Basically, I met him on holiday in Portugal a few years ago, and he came and spoke to me in a restaurant, and we had a good time, and we had a beer together, and he was very nice. And we've had him on the podcast, we're friends of the show. So those two definitely. The third one for me.
Let me guess.
Go on then.
Is it a back or a forward?
It's a forward.
Oh, okay. Well, I think we'd probably agree on this with Dan Sheehan.
It would be Dan Sheehan, yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, I thought you were going to go Marrow.
No, he got, mate. He was captain. There's an expectation, isn't there, when you're captain?
Yeah. Dan Sheehan, world class. Again, they're all my holiday friends. So I saw Dan Sheehan in Portugal a couple of years ago as well, in the same restaurant, and we just had a chat, and he was lovely.
I said I saw Anthony Joshua once and didn't make him my mate.
Well, so did I in Dubai. But yeah, I know what you mean. But between those three, they're the three standouts. Other players have had big impacts as well for various different reasons. But I think those three were the standout players. And you're judging it, like I can't remember some of the games now, and I don't know whether that's a direct representation on myself. Like, can you think back to like the Brumbies game, the New South Wales Waratahs game? It's just about the three test matches, which is what we've said on this podcast. And the reality of it is, between Finn Russell, Dan Sheehan and Tyke Byrne, they were probably... Tom Curry deserves a shout-out as well, actually, as very close to player of the series. How he goes week in, week out, all the niggle he's there. You see him try and throw the shoulder into Nick White in the niggle as well. He is everywhere, like a Energizer bunny, but the physicality as well. So probably those four, but I'm going to stick with my two Irish holiday mates and my other Dubai holiday mate, Finn Russell.
Did you have a favourite moment of the tour? Because there's been a few. There has been some talking points.
Give us some.
So you got to think Faz re-emerging back on the scene was a big talking point. He maybe didn't do as much as he would have liked to on the pitch.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that's a favourite point. It's a major talking point, but
I think this one's my favourite. Is just Will Skelton scrapping with everyone. I think that really turned the whole tour on its head, especially for the Wallabies.
Did you ever have a scrap with him at training, Jim, or anything? Is there any story there? Because I know he's a lovely human being, right? But you played the same position. I know you're a bit of a bull of a man as well, and you don't take things lightly. Did you ever have a grapple or anything with him?
Right. I'll give you a little bit of insight into Polynesian mindset for our listeners, right? These lads are generally playing at 50% of probably what they can play at, right? And then the funny saying goes that what if they have a beer? They get physical, right? Or if they're out of contract.
They're the best players in the world.
Or if something really pisses them off, they go to another level. I'm telling you now, Big Willy, Little Willy Skelton, when he was at Sarries, was better than most of the players, if not every single player on the pitch at 50%. And I always said, get him out of contract or piss him off. Not me. I ain't doing that, right? Because I knew my limitations. I could scrap a wounded animal or someone that was old and pin them down. But if it comes to it, you're not competing with a human being like that. You're just not physically, you're not. And I changed next to him in the change room, and I've got size 15 slippers, right? And my size 15 slipper would fit into his boot. So with my boot on, my boot would fit into his boot. He had size 20 feet or something ridiculous. A wonderful, warm human being, but my goodness me, at that level, just as dangerous, as physical, as brutal, as a physical specimen as you will ever see. And you see Ro Nogara's comments, right? He brought him into La Rochelle, and we saw what La Rochelle did when he was fit. That keeps coming up, right? When fit. I would say when fit, but also when motivated, right? And a lot of these players, and I say this with all due respect, and a lot of them are very close to my heart, the Tuilagis as well, the late Seru Rambini and the Fijians and stuff that we've played with, they are built differently. They're phenomenal specimens. They're great athletes. But you see, when they flip it, and you saw that with Fiji, when they can go, they can fucking go. And we saw the best version of Will Skelton. And for me, like Rob said then, that was a highlight of the tour, right? Because they looked undercooked in Test 1. We were like, look, where are you? Let's be having you. And my goodness me, let's be having you. We had them in Test 2. Valentini, exactly the same. And then we got to see Tupou in Test 3. But Will Skelton, for me, showed what it means to be a rugby man for your country. And he has the same values as some of the greats of old, the likes of Martin Johnson, what it was to be a Lion. You saw that with how he played the game, how it was to captain England. And you saw Will Skelton, what it meant to be an Australian and to play for Australia in that jersey, not just by the way he was grabbing people, but you could see it in his eyes and the way that he carried the ball. And I thought he was absolutely phenomenal. So I don't know where, what his plan is or whatever, but if you talk about financial stock, cha-ching, cha-ching, it's gone through the roof.
Yeah. Do you see the bit where he belted Finn Russell in the back and then apologised to him straight away? That shows a sign of a man that is all out. I'm going to belt anyone in front of me. And then he realises, he's like, yeah, sorry, mate. But a nice guy as well.
Yeah, he was close to getting a yellow card. That was why. I actually felt for him. I thought Amish Kelly managed him poorly as well, because I feel like a lot of the time, I reckon he went into that game with a target on his back from the referees, because the referees would have been spoken about how he acted in Test 2 and he was in the middle of everything. And I've been in that position before as well. Look at me.
What, manhandling people?
Will Skelton. But you go into a game, into a test match like that, where you can know straight away that you've got the referee's back up. I think the referees just let him get on with it.
Yeah. I've got another question for you on him though, Jim. Last question.
All right.
On Will Skelton. Couple of weeks' time, Australia go over to South Africa. Who are you backing, Will Skelton or Eben Etzebeth? That's a tough one for you because you're knee deep in Eben. As
knee
well.
Deep? I'll take knee deep. That's a polite way of putting it. Well, that's what I mean. Australia aren't competing with South Africa. They're just not, unless they've got Will Skelton, unless they've got Tupou, unless Valentini's fit. Doesn't matter. We can sit here as the biggest fans of Australia and be wax lyrical about what they did in Test 3. Without Will Skelton, you ain't beating South Africa. Like, hold me to that. If South Africa go full noise with what they've got. But you think about the championship around the corner, and again, referencing my other tweet around the strength of international rugby, how good is the fucking championship going to be? First game, okay, Australia, off the back of this tour, go to South Africa after their epic victories against Italy and Georgia. But the battle of Eben Etzebeth versus Will Skelton, that is what people want to see.
Yeah, who walks out of a ring if those two just get in a ring together?
Well, my mate Eben. I mean, he's so far deep. I don't know, but it'd be good to see.
Yeah.
Not me anyway.
That's mouth-watering, isn't it?
Don't say mouth. Don't say mouth and water with Eben in the same sentence.
Yeah.
2 more moments then, lads. The Jack Morgan clear out and then into the Hugo Keenan try.
I mean, the Jack Morgan clean out has had so much airtime because it was such a talking point. And so in terms of a moment of the tour, it was a decisive moment of the tour. on how it was refereed and how the outcome of it. And I still stand by the fact that they've got the outcome exactly spot on. But the whining across the world from the Australians to the English and the Scots and the Welsh and the Irish saying, that's play on, that's all right. Just the polar opposites of how it transcended was the big talking point. And ultimately it is a huge moment in a series that ended up in aggregate. I think it was 68-67 to the Lions. So the moment for me, that was the most talked about moment. But the moment of the tour for me was Hugo Keenan's finish. And what a way to finish a test match, to win a test match, to come back off the story that he had. And we said it last week around his illness, his weight loss, which we didn't know a lot about, going back to the point we made earlier. It was all kept under wraps. And I get you've got to keep some stuff under wraps. But in reality, that bit of skill, that bit of class, that outside break, and we saw Suaalii do it at the weekend himself for the first try for Jorgensen. But Hugo Keenan, in a moment to win a test match, for me, that try has to be the moment of the tour.
Yeah, I agree. It was the moment. It's what won them the game. At the MCG, 90,000. We kept rounding up to 100,000, so let's just stick with that. But the build-up, the story of that game, Australia winning throughout, so I'm with Goodey on there, 100%. It is the moment. It is the moment.
How do you think we'll remember this Lions tour then? Will it be remembered as one of the greats? Because we don't win many.
I'll remember it as a great Lions tour. For me, I will never be able to get past 97. I wouldn't, because of me as a young man and that bringing me into the game and the access and all of these things and ahead of their time and the icons and all these fucking buzzwords that I throw about. But for me, I thought it was a brilliant tour. I really did. Like 2021 was during COVID. Me and Goodey were there in 2017 for the New Zealand one.
That was a great tour as well, I think. But it ended with a sour taste because it was a draw and everyone's like, what do you do now?
But the tests were class. 2017 was good.
Yeah, and the quality of the opposition. 2009, with how physical and everything that went around that tour. This tour was always going to be different, right? It's Australia. They're fighting for their lives. But I thought it was brilliant. I think the old school traditions of the game, of touring, of playing week on week and midweek games, and it had everything. I don't know what more people wanted from it. Yes, you would want a better Australia in Test 1, but I think we got the best version of Australia in Test 2 and Test 3. And where will it go down? I thought it was a great tour.
Yeah.
What more do you want? I don't know where it goes down in folklore, but 97 for me will always be the one.
Folklore 97's the one, isn't it, Jim?
It'll always be the one.
Yeah. That was the kind of birth in our era, and a lot of people that listen to our podcast. 97, as you said, Jim, was the first time that you're like, geez, how good is that? And it gets your juices flowing around. A lot of people saying, I want to be a British and Irish Lion. You go through the tours. 05 was a shambles. 01 we lost to Australia. 2009, the South African one was epic, but we lose the series. 13, we beat Australia, and it was, that was a very good series. And the way we won that third test in 13 was brilliant. And so, we don't win many test series, let's be honest. We've won 2 since 97, right? Do the maths, that's 28 years. We've won it twice in 28 years. So it's up there for being a great tour from an outcome perspective. The test matches. The problem is there'll always be an asterisk. And like people are sending me asterisks on social media. For some people, there'll always be an asterisk because of how bad Australia were in that first test and how underprepared they were and how disappointing they were in that first test. But the second test and the third test, the second test will go down, I'm going to say, with one of the greatest ever test matches from a British and Irish Lions. The tour overall, great, good. But the actual second test will go down as one, I think, one of the greatest test matches from British and Irish Lions history. From minute 1 to minute 80. Drama, had everything. A big lead, a big comeback. Australia going further into the lead and then the last minute winner. That's the stuff that dreams are made of in terms of entertainment. And so I think that one game alone will stand this tour in good stead for being remembered as one of the greatest ever test matches at an unbelievable, iconic venue with, 90,000 plus in the stadium, the highest attendance for God knows how long. So that was awesome. But there's the underwhelming factor of Test 1 and the underwhelming factor of Test 3 because it was a done deal. And the Lions have been on the hose for 3 days.
I will put on record, though, I would love to see the Lions play against France. You look at the support in France, you look at the quality of opposition closer to home, so flying players in, flying players out, but how they get behind their team, you can look at it any which way. You can look at it from a marketing point of view, you can look at it from a fan point of view, a travel point of view, and ease of getting there. Let's be honest and let's be real about it. You strip out the tradition of the British and Irish Lions tours going to the Southern Hemisphere, to Australia, New Zealand, South Africa. I know the contract's up for debate. If you are innovative in your thinking, right, and you want to really push forward with engaging younger crowds or whatever, or having a different story within this, go to France. Whether or not that's every 2 years, I don't know how you do that with the World Cup. I mean, let's not talk about globalisation of the calendar, but I'll put it on record. I would love to see it.
Make club rugby semi-professional, James, as you said.
There you go.
And just make it all about the international.
There you go. Hey, you say that. Another one that's blown up as well. Hey, something needs to change, doesn't it? It doesn't in my mind, but in everyone else's mind. Rugby's not sustainable. The club game, the Welsh are losing 2 games. The Champions Cup doesn't work anymore. Well, fuck it. Throw something else out there. Make it semi-pro. Double down on international rugby and add more games internationally and put less games and make the lads semi-pro, or pay them a semi-pro salary of 100 grand a year maxed out. There you go. Bang, done. I am an expert. I am the oracle.
That's what happens when you spend a lot of time with the family in America.
Mate, you're too right.
And
no, just winding fans up as well. I just forget the influence because but winding the fans up.
Love it.
Right, lads, in other news?
Oh, hold on a minute.
Hold on a minute. Here we go. What is it, Andrew? Because there is some other news.
There is plenty of it. And as it's the end of season 9, our very last podcast of season 9, before we go into our 10th anniversary season, it's the final one, Jim. So it needs a big intro. It needs a big intro for In
Other News! Yes, well, oh gosh, the cigarettes are kicking in, Andrew. It's okay, have a swing of Coke as well. There you go, that'll sort out the throat. Well, let's start off with, in other news, with big news. We go to the USA, Andrew. I'm already here. I'm here, but we're coming back for a more important, monumental occasion, not a holiday, because when the Ireland play the All Blacks, we're here that week. We're going to be in New York on the 29th of October in the Pig and
Whistle.
The Whistle, and also Chicago. I don't know where we are. I don't know where we are in Chicago, but we're there on the 30th with the Chicago Hounds guys, and we've got a couple of live events in some class venues, Andrew.
We certainly have. So get involved. We'll share the links on our socials. I cannot wait to go to New York and Chicago, 29th of October and the 30th of October. We're going to be drinking some lovely Guinness over in New York and Chicago just before the All Blacks take on Ireland that weekend. It's going to be epic. I can't wait. I'm going to miss Halloween as well for it, so we'll be out there for Halloween, maybe Jim as well.
Oh,
it's going to be a great few days.
We're going to see some monsters, some spiders as well. Yeah, so I'm going to stay on as well to the Ireland All Blacks game. I'm going to go see what it's all about at the Epic Stadium, which will be really cool.
So make sure you have a look on all our socials and go on to Eventbrite and look for the Rugby Pod for tickets and access.
Amen to that. Sticking with America, US, and I was quite sad to hear this. And a little bit surprised, to be honest, especially how I've been on Lewis Rees Summit, but he's heading back to rugby union. And I don't know whether there's a part of it, again, I don't know whether the Jags have let him go or he's not managed to make it into the practice squad or the roster or however it works there. But there's a part of me that thinks he's seen the British and Irish Lions tour and wants a piece of it. And there's some potential offers. I mean, there's only so long that you can wait in the training room, waiting to play any sport as an elite athlete. And yeah, I just think I was a little bit surprised, a little bit sad because we've gone all in. And I wonder how he feels about it with all the imagery of him, stuff like in his NFL gear, holding an NFL ball and never actually getting to.
You interviewed him not long ago, didn't you?
Last year.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, listen, it's great for rugby that Lewis Rees-Zammit's coming back. And there'll be plenty of idiots out there going, ha ha, told you so. He was never going to make it. He has gone over there and given it everything to try and follow that dream. But like in everything to do with sport, you've got a clock on your career, right? So as Jim said, you've only got X amount of years. You might have 10 years, you might have 12 years, you might have 14 years, you might only have 6 years of proper, I'm at the peak and I want to do something. And he's obviously gone and given the NFL a crack. Obviously, it was at Kansas City Chiefs, then moved to Jacksonville. And to crack it, when you haven't played the game, in terms of growing up playing the game, you're trying to compete with lads that have done it for 15, 20 years. And so I back him and I say, mate, well done having a crack, but it's also brilliant to get him back into rugby union. And there's obviously a decent offer come from somewhere. Is it the Red Bull Falcons?
What have you heard?
Is it the fact that Welsh rugby is struggling and they need a pin-up boy to put everything behind him and Jack Morgan, whatever? But ultimately, he's a wonderful asset for rugby union. And to get him back and to say to him, mate, fair play, you had a crack. You gave it everything. You didn't get the opportunity or you didn't quite make it, but he hasn't come back with his tail between his legs. He's come back and said, I miss rugby. I want to come back and play rugby. I didn't make it in the NFL, but I gave it a crack. He can look himself in the mirror. Because what happens if he'd have stayed in rugby union and there was that little itch there the whole time? Like that little itch of going, geez, could I have made it in the NFL? Should I have had a crack? And you get to the end of the career, or he gets a career-ending injury at some point and goes, there's a regret there, right? So I'd say tip the slipper to him. He's had a go. He's followed his dreams. He hasn't made it. So he's come back and I'm sure he'll have a massive impact on Welsh rugby and whatever club he ends up at. But where's he going? Where is Lewis Rees-Zammit going then? Rob, I think it's a bit too cold for him up at the Red Bull Falcons.
Yeah, Rob, you're deep on Reddit, aren't you? Reddit's normally where the rumours lie.
He was spotted on the Tyne Bridge with a can of Red Bull, is what I read. So.
He signed
You know what, though? If the Red Bull Falcons, or even if they're called that, if they're to do it properly, let's call it out how it is. If they're to do it properly, right, you've got the hottest property now. You've got someone that would front a Red Bull brand incredibly well. Then you sign Lewis Rees-Zammit. So let's see how much business Newcastle really mean under this new ownership. If it's not, has it been announced yet, Rob, or not?
Not yet.
Not yet. No. Okay. Well, that's what I mean. Well, let's see if they mean business, because they are signing a few other players now. So there's clearly money, like Jamie Hodgson has gone there. Freddie Clark from Gloucester as well has been signed, who I think is a brilliant signing. I was chatting to Lewis Ludlow. I was like, how are Gloucester getting rid of Freddie Clark? And he's blaming us. He's blaming us. Because we got him an enhanced salary. Like off the back of us saying he deserves more, he got more, and then they can't afford to keep him. That's our fault.
Well, you take it when you can get it, right? You can take it when you can get it.
But there's other rumours circulating about other lads heading to R360 as well, isn't there? A couple of lines, boys.
Mate, I'll be honest, these rumours are probably coming from those people themselves just trying to drum up interest in the R360, whatever it's called. Yeah, mate, you never know. Like, until you see a full plan of this is what's happening, and James might know a bit more. If you're one of the lads, like a Finn Smith who's been linked with it, like a Jack Morgan who's been linked with it, some of the other players as well, you're sorting out your rugby contract, and I just can't see it with those younger guys. I can see it with some of the older boys, I really can. But some of the younger guys, at the minute, I don't think they'll be pushing themselves forward to do it. But rumours are rumours. There's no smoke without fire, James Hamilton.
Well, this takes us back into a more negative mindset around the club game, right? Because if you were to look at Jack Morgan, stock's risen, okay, profile's higher, and value of the player is now high. He's a British and Irish Lion, right? Okay, test player. So he's now going to go back to Ospreys, okay? And it's an absolute turmoil there. Like, he's walking through the door of Ospreys and no one knows if there is going to be a team there in 6 months' time or in 12 months' time. So if you're a Jack Morgan and you've got clubs, I'm hearing there's clubs in France after him, naturally, okay, I doubt Premiership clubs will be able to afford him. You're going to be looking, right? And this R360, again, you go based on the rumours and the amount of money that they're throwing about.
He's going to Bath.
Of course, someone...
He must be going to Bath. They need another back rower. And I was with someone from Bath at the weekend who's involved in the club. I won't say who, but he was adamant that they're not cheating on the salary cap. I was like, of course you're not. Who have you signed this year? I was like, who's your backup 10 again for Finn Russell, the most highly paid player in the Prem? He's like, oh, Santi Carreras. I'm like, no, of course you're not.
Got offered more at Gloucester, apparently. Yeah. I had Rob Burgess on the Big Jim show, the head of recruitment at Bath. So listen to that episode if you want to know more about Bath, Andrew.
Sure.
Thank you for that.
Burjo doesn't tell lies at all, does he?
Yeah, but yeah, that's what I mean. So with it, like, this is now us getting back into the crux of the business of the game, and the season's going to start, and there's going to be a few moving parts while we down tools for a few weeks. But yeah, like, I think always after these tours and World Cups, and it's great, okay, because the next talking point is Joseph Suaalii. He's linked with a move away from the Waratahs.
To where?
Why, he's only been there a week, isn't he?
He ain't going to Sarries because Faz was shouting at him saying, "You've won fuck all! You've won fuck all!"
2 balls of men, 2 alphas going at it. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'll be honest, I'll be sad if he leaves Australia.
Yeah.
I can't see how he can. I think he's contracted again. No one knows, because no one knows rugby contracts, how they all work, how much is he paid, what's going on. So the fact that that's in there, Rob must have dug deep into Reddit. He's looking for a bit of clicky, clicky, click during the down periods. But Joseph Suaalii, if he ends up in France, I'll be very disappointed. But that's the only place he could go. Or Japan, but they normally do that towards the end of their careers.
Yeah. I tell you what, I was thinking of you the other day, Jim, when I was watching Quarterback on Netflix, and they were talking about contracts and stuff, and you can go online and find out exactly what people are earning and how they're earning it. That is the Jim Hamilton way of selling rugby union. Just get the contracts out there and how long they last for and how much everyone's earning.
That's a small piece of the jigsaw, but I ain't going to speak about it anymore. I'm done. I'm done doing that.
Right, lads, let's finish things up with the good, the bad and the ugly.
Yeah, there's a few bits of good, bad and ugly. So we'll start off with the good. The Bulls get a shout in the good this week. James, they spanked the Sharks 64-0. The Curry Cup is going on. What is going on with the Sharks? I'll come back to that in a minute. Big shout out to the Lions as well. They beat Western Province 40 points to 19. What else was good? Lewis Rees-Zammit coming back to rugby union. I think that is a good thing. Wherever he ends up, he's had a crack. We spoke about it just before, but give him a big shout out. Good news to see him back in rugby union, and something that Welsh rugby needs more than ever right now as well. So it'd be great to see him back in a Wales jersey. One from out of nowhere, Lima Sopawanga is getting a shout out in the good this week. Have you seen this one?
I've seen some stuff on social with him playing in Japan.
Well, he is back in New Zealand. And the story of it, he signed for Waikato on a $1 contract. He was playing like club rugby, signed on a $1 contract. He scored the winner right at the death for Waikato, signed a $1 contract 2 weeks ago.
$1?
$1! And he scores the winner at Eden Park against Auckland for Waikato. They won 36-35. And he's a man from my own heart because he's had a big off-season. He has bulked. He's been on the bulking phase, and I loved it. He makes a break, then he gets the pass away, then he gets the return pass, dives nearby the sticks, and then he's just doing ice in his veins celebration, saying, what? Because everyone,
$1.
I think everyone in New Zealand, or loads of people in New Zealand, were like, what the hell are they signing him for? Well, that's why. So Lima Sopawanga gets a massive shout out this week in the good. But the good this week goes to another friend of the show in Nick White and the Australian rugby team. Nick White, hell of a career, 70-odd caps. He was an absolute menace, a pest, managed the game exceptionally well, got under the right people's skin, smallest bloke on the field, had one of the biggest impacts on the game at the weekend with his management, his kicking, his niggle, his gnarl. His abrasiveness. In the olden days, he'd have got a slap and he wouldn't have come back. But he played it absolutely perfectly. It's a great way to finish an unbelievable Wallabies career. He's a great man. You heard Harry Wilson speak about him after the game as well, saying he's an unbelievable teammate, loves a beer, sets the standards, everything that you want from a player. So the good this week goes to Nick White and the Australian rugby team for their performance in beating the British and Irish Lions in the dead rubber third test. It wasn't a dead rubber, but Jim thought it was. So big shout out to Nick White and the Australian rugby team. That's why they win the good this week.
Here.
The bad, 4 bits of bad. We're going to start off with, I said it just before, the Sharks. What's going on at the Sharks, Jim? 64 points at the Bulls. Big rivals, 64. Who takes 64?
Yeah, the Curry Cup was massive as well back in the day, so I don't know what's happened with that. Club rugby, make it semi-pro.
Yeah. So that gets a shout in the bad. What else was bad? The Lions, they get a mention in the bad. They're mixed bag at the weekend. They've obviously gone on the hose. Their tanks are empty. But as Dan Sheehan said, it left a bit of a sour taste in the mouth performing like that in the third test. Sticking with the Lions, and a mention of the bad, whoever's having a go at Finn Russell for getting his phone out, let the boy play on Tetris or whatever he's doing, betting on horses or emailing or messaging nightclub managers. People having a go at him for that, ridiculous. They get mentioned in the bad. David Nucifora gets a mention in the bad this week as well for putting a towel on the camera. You don't do that. And Jim Hamilton will tell you why you don't do that. Who is he to dictate what we can and can't see? So he gets a mention in the bad. But the bad this week goes to the absolute clown, the absolute idiot, whoever it was in Sydney at the stadium who was playing Sweet Caroline when James Ryan was sparkoed on the floor, getting stretchered off. I get you need to hype the crowd, but know when to hype the crowd, and it's not when a bloke has been sparkoed by Will Skelton's knee and he's being stretchered off the pitch. So whoever that idiot was, I can't name and shame because we don't know because they're all hiding, but they win the bad this week. And then the ugly, sticking with the ugly, only one bit of ugly really, and that was Dan Sheehan's clear out on Tom Liner. I didn't think it was that bad, but when you've watched it back a few times, it is sort of shoulders to the head. Tom Liner does poke his head up, but he's got a 4-match ban, which will be down to 3 matches if he completes the World Rugby Tackle School. And so basically he misses, and this is the weird part, he misses 1 Leinster pre-season game that he'd have never played in, and then 2 opening URC games that he'd have never played in. And the 4th one is Leinster against Munster in October that he would have played in, that he will still play in because he'll do tackle school. So rugby union.
That's our rugby.
But that's why Dan Sheehan wins the ugly this week.
I'll add some shout outs to finish.
Yep, got a shout out to Tom Craven and the lads of London OH Exiles RFC, who are doing a half marathon run from Twickenham to Clapham, raising money for the club after a bit of financial difficulty this year. The club has been going over 100 years, so they are desperately trying to help these lads out. Check them out on socials and please give generously if you can.
Yeah, just get some. This old Haileybury is the OH, James, so Haileybury School, just chuck a load of money at it, you'll be fine. Loads of people there, affluent people. Saracens area, they've got money to burn. Next, we need to give a massive shout out to Nigel Ellis and basically wish him get well soon from Manor Park RFC in Coventry. He's undergone brain surgery, so Nigel, hope you're doing as well as you can. All the lads at Manor Park RFC are thinking of you, and so are we at the Rugby Pod.
Absolutely. Thinking of you, Nigel. We got a shout out to Adam Cheetah Crawshaw, who played his 1,000th game for Abbey Mead Veterans.
Cheddar!
In Gloucester. What's Cheddar?
Cheddar.
Oh, banter. Sorry, Cheddar. All right, yeah, here we go. There we go. Yeah, missed it. But yeah, he's played his 1,000th game for the Abbey Mead Veterans in Gloucester this weekend. That a boy. How old are you, Cheddar? How old are you, mate?
Also, a shout out to Alfie Pritchard as well, who completed a triple Ironman, raising money for the Oddballs Foundation. They do some unbelievable things, the Oddballs Foundation, some crazy boxer shorts as well. So big shout out to Alfie Pritchard. Triple Ironman, Alfie Pritchard, you absolute hero.
I bet his feet are Megan.
Right, lads, that's all she wrote. La, 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 la.
That is all shit. 45 episodes, James Hamilton, in season 9. Next year is the 10th anniversary of the Rugby Pod. Can you believe it? When we come back in September, it'll be season 10, our 10th season of talking absolute waffle about rugby and trying to make people laugh, smile, and take the piss out of each other. It's been great. 9 seasons of fun. Season 10 is going to be the biggest yet, isn't it, Jim?
Well, let's see, because we didn't start in Chicago or New York, but are we levelling up? Rob, what's happening? Mate, you got to give the listeners something. What's happening next year, next season?
We're going to get better week on week.
We're going to get better week on week. There we go. We are going to get better week on week.
And we're going to do a world tour starting in Chicago and New York and wherever else you want us to come. We will be there. I get loads of messages saying, when you coming here? I'll come anywhere. So will Jim Hamilton. Rob will have to have a think whether he's good enough to come on some of the trips, but We're going to have an epic season 10. Thank you, everyone, for listening. 45 episodes. It's been long. It's been fun. We've loved every minute of it. We've loved having you all as listeners, downloaders, subscribers. And we're just going to get better and better week on week in season 10.
Right, that's all she wrote. La, 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 Rugby Spod.
Spotted pod.